So, my name is Christopher Will. I go by CJ. I am the chair for the Aeronautics department here at Charleston Southern University. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to our Aeronautics program. We will start in the fall of next year, fall of 2021, with a professional pilot degree. It's a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics, professional pilot. And we'll add some additional programs to that. We anticipate adding an Aviation and Space Management degree program, as well as an agreement with Trident Tech for an Aviation Maintenance Management program. And not just an agreement with Trident Tech, but with all of the two-year colleges here in South Carolina that offer an aircraft maintenance technical program. So my background is I am recently retired United States Air Force pilot. I spent most of my time flying F-16s. I flew T-38s as well. I'm a recovering attorney in all candor. So all the caveats that go along with that. I have practiced law both as a JAG in the Air Force before becoming a pilot as well with the Department of Justice, doing aviation and admiralty trial work with a focus on aviation, obviously. And I've taught with Embry-Riddle for a number of years now. I retired out of the Citadel as the Air Force ROTC detachment commander there. So it's a pleasure to be here now. I haven't quite grown out my hair yet since I retired in July, but it's a little bit longer than it was previously. So anyhow, that's me. So let's talk about the aeronautics program here in the professional pilot degree, if it'll let me. This is a Christian university, and it's appropriate for me to talk a little bit about the aspirational nature of aviation. You know, our goal in the program isn't just to have students walk out with their degree in hand and a bunch of FAA certifications. It's to build professional pilots, aviators, and aviation professionals with character and integrity, a Christian worldview, and an appreciation for not just the academics and the substantive portions of aviation and aviation education, but really the spirit and the aspiration that goes along with that. So, you know, our students, when they graduate, will look at the sky differently. And those of you who have aviation experience know that to be true. You see it in 3 dimensions and you imagine yourself in it. So my goal is twofold: to get to those kids who may not even know that aviation is something that they dream about and aspire to, introduce them to aviation, and then help them build the pathways to achieve their dreams and aspirations. Accordingly, our mission, you could read that as well as I can say it to you. What we're looking to do is build in at the bottom layer, at the foundational layer, those leadership, ethical and professional qualities that we want to see from a graduate from CSU in aeronautics. We have to add in all of the mechanics, you know, the local and regional requirements for the educational program, the FAA's expectations for both a flight school like we'll have, as well as a restricted airline transport pilot program, and I'll discuss that later, and the VA requirements for an aviation program so that students on post 9/11 GI Bill benefits and Montgomery Bill benefits can take advantage of our program. And we're really trying to focus on progressive teaching styles, on keeping students engaged, using technology, not only in the classroom, but in our aircraft. And I think you'll see we'll have a range of very modern, technologically advanced aircraft for our students, as well as programs that support that. Unmanned aerial systems classes, flight simulator classes, and some other courses that really will put us on the leading edge of aviation from the go. How we're going to get there is by reaching out to a diverse group of students here in the Low Country, and again, help those kids who may not even know that aviation is something they dream about realize that. And we'll do that both through our outreach, our networks, and our marketing, but also through a nonprofit and a network of nonprofits to get the word out and really share our aspiration for those young men and young women of the Low Country. Our core values are inherently aviation-oriented. Aviation is a profession that requires self-discipline, attention to detail, integrity. Trust in aviation is paramount. But it's also speaks to the mission here at Charleston Southern University and the charter that we have. And so RAISE has become our um, our core values, signifies our core values. And you should see in the next year or so students walking around campus with that on their t-shirts. And it stands for a few things. Respect, we'll respect ourselves, and we'll respect others as human beings first, as citizens, and then as students, and then as aspiring aviators. So we'll make sure we keep the priorities in the right place. And when we do that, and when we discuss and interact with each other and talk about issues of ethical import, and we do it from a position of mutual respect, we have the opportunity to learn and to grow. If education is anything, if education can do anything for us, it will allow us to change our perspective, broaden our perspective about issues, especially those issues that are most important. Right now in society, you see a lot of the opposite. You see a lot of people shouting each other out of the room, not much respect that's shown to one another. And our goal is to engage with each other in this university setting and covet the opinions of others that aren't necessarily ours, covet the perspectives of others that aren't like ours. And through that diversity, we will change perspective. And aviation is particularly powerful in that respect, because it not only metaphorically changes your perspective about the world and yourself in it, but it physically does that. When you're up there in the air in 3 dimensions looking down on the earth, it looks a whole lot different than in your car sitting in traffic. And it broadens your perspective and changes your perception of the world and yourself. We will hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable to not just the FAA standards or the academic accreditation standards for the state of South Carolina and the region, but we will hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard of conduct. One that is reminiscent, I believe, of a military aviation program, which is where I'm from, and one that also is appropriate for a Christian university. And then integrity, service, and excellence. If you have military experience, particularly Air Force experience, you'll recognize those. Integrity first in all that we do. There is nothing we will do here that is worth one's integrity. I will preach from the mountaintop. Integrity is the only thing people can't take from you, yet so many of us just give it away. Our goal is to build students, young professionals in aviation careers with that integrity safely intact. Service is part of our program here, part of our mission at CSU, and certainly fits in with aviation, particularly within our missionary aviation pilot track. And then excellence. There is virtue in being good at what you do, and so we will practice that. You may ask yourself, especially given what's going on today in the world with COVID-19 and what's going on in the aviation world in particular, with regard to the contraction of the commercial aviation industry, the issues that aviation manufacturers are having, airlines are having, regional airlines are having. All of these different and disparate interests are suffering because of the lack of demand and the restrictions on travel. That is real, but that will be in our rearview mirror at some point. In discussing this with most experts and reading most of the predictions, COVID will be behind us from an aviation travel demand standpoint in the next 1 to 4 years. Most put it at the 1 to 2 year part, at worst about 4 years from now. And so we anticipate that at the end of that time frame, 1 to 2 or even 4 years, that the demand will not snap back, but come back and with a vengeance. Because not only will demand for travel come back, but we'll also have a worsening pilot shortage as well. So from a return on investment standpoint, as you look at the slide here, you'll see, if you can read the slide on the left, that aviation, professional aviation, has a better return on investment than either medicine or law. And that comes from the Office of Management and Budget. And the federal government did a study on this. So at $33 for every dollar invested in aviation education, that beats obviously law and medicine, given the number of years that you can practice it as well. And then because South Carolina is only is one of only 2 states in the entire nation that doesn't have an aviation degree program, the opportunity for the school here is extraordinary too. So we have opportunities for the school and for growth and building those experiential learning programs and being visionary and on the leading edge of professional training, and also for our students themselves who are interested in the program. Prior to COVID, Boeing and Airbus did a study, and this is a study that they've updated the last several years about the pilot shortage. That the international pilot shortage. And they have estimated that in the next 20 years, they will need in excess of 800,000 airline pilots in the world, over 212,000 within North America alone. And of course, American pilots, because of the training systems we have in American training systems, tend to train and then export pilots around the world. So the share of American training and American pilots in that worldwide number is greater than 212,000 as a matter of course and naturally. Because of COVID, hiring is down. However, airline pilots are continuing to hit that 65-year FAA required retirement age. So we are still retiring massive amounts of pilots. That was driving this huge shortage before COVID hit. So you can only imagine that airlines that were already scheduled to hire record numbers of pilots, thousands of pilots every year for the next 10 years. United Airlines was scheduled to completely rehire the total amount of pilots they have now in the next 10 years. All right, that's going to be worse, not better, when we come back out of COVID. And a lot of experts are predicting that that world demand number will exceed 1 million. And again, those are airline pilots. So imagine all of the student pilots who are training for their private tickets and commercial tickets. Imagine how many of those it takes to get to an airline transport pilot, which is basically the terminal degree in that field, if you will. So there's a huge need out there. It's going to get worse, not better. And our students, our first cohort will graduate in 2025, will be on the leading edge of what we hope and pray is the hiring boom that will follow COVID and persist for decades, not just months or years. Charleston is uniquely suited for aviation instruction. And it's not just because it's sunny and beautiful here, which it is most of the time. It's a little warm in the summer, but that's okay too. And humid. I'm not from Charleston initially, but I love it here. And my blood is thin. I tell you what, we got into the low 70s and I put on a sweater. But there's a great community of support here. And the community is not just in the general aviation airfields that surround Charleston. If you look on the map there on the right, you'll see there are a number of airports, not just Charleston International Airport, but Johns Island, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, Moncks Corner, a ton of airports in the local vicinity that can facilitate a whole lot of training. But there's also education at Trident Tech. They've got an aviation maintenance technician program. There is industry with Boeing and with Lockheed Martin up there in upstate, with Gulfstream, large aviation manufacturing and production companies. They're just across the border into Georgia, and a host of other aviation-related industries and organizations that are out there. Government organizations, non-governmental organizations. I'm talking to South Carolina Aeronautics Commission, the Charleston County Aviation Authority, South Carolina Aerospace, which is a conglomeration of businesses and business interests that discuss opportunities with the government. So there's a huge amount of opportunity out there within our area. We think of Charleston as a seafaring Navy town, and really there's a great culture of aviation. We're also talking with nonprofit groups like Tuskegee out at Walterboro. The Hiram E. Mann chapter for the Tuskegee Airmen is out there. That was a former World War II training base for fighter pilots going overseas with Tuskegee. Women in Aviation International has a chapter here in Charleston, and we're closely tied to the hip with them. And so there's all sorts of opportunities here. And so our challenge isn't going to be, is there enough opportunity? Are there enough students out there it's our challenge is going to be maintaining focused on those core mission values, goals. That's going to be our focus, because this is one of those, if you build it, they will come situations. I'm very confident. All right. Okay. Let me catch my breath for a minute. All right, so what is the professional pilot program? So it's a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics professional pilot. And it is our seminal program, the program we're going to found the other programs here in the Aeronautics Department on. It involves both ground instruction for FAA written exams here at CSU, but also flight instruction through a contractor that we have selected, but we're not ready quite to announce who it is. And we'll be providing students opportunities to not only satisfy their liberal arts core here and get a complete collegiate program here, a college degree, but also earn their FAA private pilot certification, instrument rating, commercial pilot certification, and multi-engine rating as a minimum. That's what rounds out the professional pilot program. There's one flight lab per semester. Most are 2-hour labs, and I'll talk about those in a moment. The ground school, again, is done here at CSU through our classes and our academics. And then our flight training labs are done at some combination of Charleston and Somerville airports. There are 3 tracks. So once you've satisfied the professional pilot core, that aeronautics core, which is about 45 hours, then you have 3 tracks to choose from. Commercial, which is the airline track, which also includes your certified flight instructor certification. Then there's a military track and a missionary track, and we're working on both of those. So the initial program will be professional pilot, commercial track. That's going to be our initial degree program. All of them, however, result in what is a restricted ATP, a reduced number of hours required to become an airline transport pilot and to earn that certification. Normally, the FAA requires one to have 1,500 hours of total time and varying types and flavors of hours before they can be hired by a regional airline initially and then an airline later. With a 4-year accredited aviation degree program, collegiate aviation degree program, that number goes from 1,500 hours to 1,000 hours. So it saves these students 500 hours of time that they would need, which is a great incentive for coming to the program, making the substantive investment in the flight training, which of course has a great return on investment and getting better, and spend that time here with us at CSU. If you want to look a little bit more at each of the flight labs, the private pilot is 2 semesters long. We let the freshmen adjust to college life, and they solo their first semester, and then we'll take their private pilot exam the second. Instrument is a challenging 1-semester course. But we are doing that, and we've designed an outstanding course there with Craft. We have a small UAS, otherwise known as drone, course, and it complies with FAA Part 107 to get student pilots either who have their private pilot license or who don't. That course will be open to all students to take. We also have a flight simulator course. It's a 1-hour course that's also open for them as well. Then the commercial certification, multi-engine rating, and then for those going on the commercial pilot track, the flight instructor rating. The military will have a military-focused flight training regimen and some additional courses. ROTC courses will likely have dual credit for the program, and then a missionary track. And the concept behind the missionary track is a training program that will not only prepare them to fly and even maintain aircraft at an austere field in San Antonio, excuse me, in South America. I don't know where San Antonio came from. South America, Africa, and some of those other developing areas where missionary work is most prevalent and most productive. But it will also provide management and leadership courses necessary for them to navigate the trials and travails of that particular flavor of aviation. And of course, we're bringing in experts from each of these fields to teach these classes. Many of them will be taught by adjuncts. We will have a small permanent faculty here, but many of them will be taught by adjuncts. We'll have courses on global navigation, courses on airport operations and management, systems management, or safety systems management. You name it, we've got a whole host of courses that fill out and round out what is a very wholesome, fulsome program in aviation. This is an example of what an aviation professional pilot degree program will look like. Again, and this is just the core of the aeronautics core classes. If you look on the left, you'll see from top to bottom, you're going freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and from left to right, you're going fall to spring. The AERN prefixed classes, which are the aeronautics classes, the ones in bold are the core. You'll see, especially in the junior and senior year, some other courses that are elective courses, like global navigation and airport management. Aviation law is another one. And so quite a few of these courses are electives. And that reservoir of courses of those electives will only grow as we add in the military and the missionary pilot programs. Overall, 60 hours of aviation curriculum that's been certified by the FAA is necessary for that restricted ATP certification. But Again, it is a college degree, and our students are going to be busy and they're going to be challenged, but it's a good challenge and one that's fulfilling. It's one thing to spend all day in the books or three hours a night before an event on campus to study. It's another thing to spend 2 or 3 hours studying and then go out and fly the next morning. That's a lot of fun, and you get quite a bit of credit for those flight labs as well. I keep wanting to ask if there are any questions, and I can't see you because I've taken you off the screen, but hopefully you haven't all left. We are working with, again, local nonprofits. We have, again, Tuskegee Women in Aviation International. There are local STEM organizations, TECMO being one of them in the local community. Just some great aviation-minded and STEM-focused organizations here. One of them is the Low Country Aviation Association, near and dear to my heart as one of the founding members and the director. And we are a nonprofit. We're getting out doing camps, mostly high schoolers. We hold camps each semester. You can find us on Facebook, Low Country Aviation Association. And we are doing camps for high schoolers who are interested in being part of the program at Low Country Aviation Association. And that will provide an outstanding feeder for Charleston Southern University. Low Country Aviation Association has been in existence for a number of years now. And we've been doing some great work, only interrupted by COVID, but we will get back to our semester, our fall day camps. I believe we're having one on October 24th, if I'm not mistaken. So take a look at that if you're interested. And we're targeting those high school sophomores and juniors who aren't quite sure that aviation's for them. It's a no-cost program, and they walk out with not only a full stomach, because we know that's the way you get to a high schooler, but also their first training flight from a certified flight instructor and the logbook to prove it. So it's an outstanding program. It's supported by CRAFT flight training and also by a grant from the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission. So again, it's a great community here. All right, I've been talking for too long. Let me stop my screen share and get to y'all. Let me go to, all right, participant security. You can now unmute yourselves, and hopefully you haven't lost anybody, but what questions do y'all have for me?
Thank you so much. This was a great overview. What do you think is going to be the most challenging part for these students as they navigate the coursework of this aviation degree?
Great question. I think it's, you know, one of the great lessons of any undergraduate collegiate education is time management, right? So I'm not worried about them doing the studying for flying, because flying is just a lot of fun. So I have no doubt in my mind that they'll be doing the preparation necessary to fly. And of course, the more preparation they do on the ground at 0 knots and 1G will save them money in the flight training that they'll need to do. And we'd rather do the work on the ground and have fun in the air than try to do the work in the air. And that always costs more in the long run. But I think it's going to be just a time management and schedule coordination issue. So each one of these students, we will walk through and make sure they have at least 2 or 3 3-hour periods during their week that they can dedicate to actually the flight lab portion. So that will be one challenge, will be managing that schedule.
So with other degrees at CSU, they require internships. I'm assuming the flight hours are going to be considered the internships with this degree track.
The experiential learning aspect of this course is the flight labs, and they will be hands-on. You know, we'll do everything from doing the flight training itself, but the ground school and the preparation simulators. We've got outstanding simulators there that they'll be using. And for those in the missionary track, they'll also learn about foundational and fundamental aircraft maintenance. So they'll actually roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. But flying is a contact sport. It's very experiential. You got to get your hands on it. And I have no doubt in my mind that we will meet those requirements that way. I should add that there's no minor required for this professional pilot degree as well, so they can focus really on the flying aspects of the course. I have a guest, a gentleman, and also Kimberly Ford. Anybody have any? You're listed as guest, sir.
Yeah, so I'm one of the new enrollment counselors for Instant McBride. You did a great, so I really do appreciate you just taking your time
Sure.
explaining this course. I really do appreciate it. It's very informative.
No problem. Do you have any questions for me at all?
I don't know. So you're very explanatory. Everything was very clear.
Great, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah.
It looks like
Kimberly Ford.
Kimberly put in the chat she doesn't have access to her mic.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can undo her mic here. Yeah, I can't undo her mic either. I can go to chat though. Let me go to chat. Kimberly, question. Do you have details about the other degrees that were mentioned in the original press release? So I don't yet have the details. After we get this course, this program, excuse me, degree program accredited and approved, then we'll begin to build those other programs. The aviation space management degree will share a lot of the curriculum that we have in the professional pilot degree. And in fact, a student might determine that they want to satisfy electives through some of the flying courses if they wanted to. And that's something they can do as well. The aviation and space management degree will also serve as kind of a catch for students who decide that maybe flying isn't for them, because we always have a few students who either don't love the flying or they have different aspirations within aviation. And so it will provide a catch-all as well. But I can't give you any specifics on it just right now.
I think that's all the questions we have.
Okay, all right. Well, then I will sign off. And my information was on that last slide, cwill@csuniv.edu. And if you all have any questions, please let me know. But thank you again.
Thank you so much. This was great.
All right, no problem. My pleasure.